Eagles fan, finally we can breathe. The 3-week nightmare is over, and it ended in the most brutal, dominant, and Philadelphia way possible. We entered Week 15 with a dark cloud over our head, 3 straight losses, doubts about the offense, criticism of Nick Sirianni, and a fan base on the verge of panic. But yesterday, at Lincoln Financial Field, the team responded. And it wasn't a tight little win. It wasn't a stressful last-minute field goal. It was a massacre. 31-0 against the Las Vegas Raiders, a shutout to cleanse the soul. But the big story of the night wasn't the scoreboard. It wasn't even Jalen Hurts. The story of the night has a name, a surname, and a Super Bowl ring on his finger: Brandon Graham. Let's get straight to the highlight, because what we witnessed was history being written. Brandon Graham, the hero of Super Bowl 52. The man who should be retired watching the game from his couch decided to turn back the clock. John Clark from NBC Sports Philadelphia confirmed the insane stat yesterday. Brandon Graham became the oldest player in Philadelphia Eagles history to record a sack. And he didn't just do it to mark his presence or get a participation trophy. BG was a force of nature. He recorded 2 sacks in the game. 2. At 37 or 38 years old, coming out of retirement in the middle of the season, he was more productive than pass rushers half his age. It is unbelievable. He received the game ball in the locker room, and deservedly. It is proof that the Mamba mentality, or in our case, the dog mentality, doesn't aid. We need to contextualize how absurd this is for the younger fans watching. The news reminds us Brandon Graham had hung up his cleats this offseason. He was effectively retired, living his life after football. But when the Philadelphia Eagles needed a boost in the pass rush in the middle of the season, when injuries and ineffectiveness were plaguing our defensive line, who answered the phone? BG. He returned according to the article about 6 games ago, and yesterday was the peak of that return. He said in the post-game interview for NBC 10 that he is enjoying playing defensive tackle, meaning he's using his veteran intelligence and old man strength in the middle of the line, abusing opposing guards who probably grew up watching him play. He has 2 sacks in 6 games since returning, which is an excellent average for a rotational veteran. BG didn't come back to be a mascot, he came back to be decisive. While BG was making history, the rest of the defense was operating at a level we haven't seen in months. Holding any NFL team to 0 points is hard in the modern era. The rules are designed for offenses to score. Refs throw flags for everything. But what we did to the Raiders was humiliating. Their quarterback, Kenny Pickett, was limited to a pitiful 64 passing yards. You heard that right, 64 yards in an entire professional game. That is a stat line from the 1940s. Furthermore, we forced an interception and took the QB down 4 times 4 sacks, in total 2 from BG. It was a defensive masterclass. The secondary locked everything down the front line, swallowed the run game, and the pass rush got home. If Vic Fangio wanted a response from his players after the losing streak, he got the perfect response. Let's talk about the psychological impact of a shutout. When a defense achieves a shutout, it changes the entire vibration of the locker room. For weeks, we talked about how soft the defense looked, how they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. A 31-0 win sends a message to the rest of the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles defense is awake. It restores the fear factor. Playing in Philly in December is supposed to be miserable for opponents, and yesterday, Kenny Pickett looked absolutely miserable. He was seeing ghosts. The coverage was tight, the tackling was crisp, and for the first time in a long time, we didn't see missed assignments or blown coverages. It was a disciplined, violent performance. On the other side of the ball, the offense did its homework without needing to force it. Remember our previous video complaining that Jalen Hurts wasn't running and was throwing too much? Well, yesterday the balance was better, but more importantly, the efficiency was there. Jalen Hurts threw for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. No bizarre turnovers, no forcing dangerous balls into double coverage. He distributed the game like a maestro. He didn't need to throw for 300 yards because the field position was great and the red zone execution was flawless. This is what we call winning football. Sometimes you don't need the flashy stats, you just need to make the right plays at the right time. And we have to highlight the return of the safety blanket. Dallas Goedert, the tight end, had 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. We have said this on the channel 1,000 times. This offense operates at its peak when Dallas Goedert is the focal point over the middle. When Goddard is catching balls in the seam, it forces the linebackers to drop back, which opens up lanes for the running game. Devonta Smith with 50 yards and A.J. Brown with 41 yards and a TD completed the party. It was an offense that didn't need to be explosive all the time, but was lethal in the red zone. 3 touchdowns through the air, plus Saquon Barkley on the ground, shows that we can hurt teams in multiple ways. Speaking of Saquon, 78 rushing yards, and a touchdown is a solid day at the office. He controlled the clock and punished the Raiders' defensive front, wearing them down so the passing game could shine in the red zone. Let's discuss the biggest improvement from the losing streak to turnover. In the loss to the Chargers and the other recent disasters, we were giving the ball away like it was Christmas. Fumbles, interceptions, sloppy play. Yesterday, 0 turnovers, a clean sheet. When you protect the football and your defense plays lights out, you win 31-0. It is a simple formula, but one we had forgotten. Jalen Hurts looked poised. He threw the ball away when the play wasn't there, instead of taking a sack or forcing a throw. That maturity is what we were missing. It seems the coaching staff finally drilled into their heads that you cannot win in the NFL if you beat yourself. Yesterday, the Eagles didn't beat themselves. They just beat the Raiders. With this victory, the Eagles climbed to 9 wins and 5 losses. There are only 3 games left in the regular season. We got out of the death spiral and put ourselves firmly back in the fight for the playoff. And who knows, maybe the division's title, depending on other results. This was the classic get-right game. Everything that was going wrong in recent weeks, leaky defense, stagnant offense, lack of pressure on the QB was corrected on a Sunday afternoon against an inferior opponent. We gained confidence, but we cannot get arrogant. It was the Raiders. They are a struggling team with a backup-level quarterback. The challenge now is to take this momentum and apply it against elite competition. But you can only beat who is on your schedule, and the Eagles dominated them thoroughly. This win also calms the noise around Nick Sirianni. For a week, the local radio and national media were calling for his head. A 31-point blowout win buys him silence. It shows that he hasn't lost the locker room. The players played hard for him. You don't get a shutout if the players have quit on the coach. You don't see a 38-year-old Brandon Graham diving for sacks if the culture is broken. The culture is still there, but it needed a spark. And ironically, the spark came from the oldest guy on the roster. Looking at the calendar, this is the time to get hot. In the NFL, it is not about who starts the season best. It is about who plays best in December and January. The Eagles of 2017 taught us that. Going 9-5 is a solid position. If the defense plays like this, creating pressure without needing to blitz heavily and locking down receivers, we are a dangerous team. If the offense can protect the ball and score in the red zone like they did yesterday, we are a contender. The pieces are there. We just need consistency. We cannot go back to the sloppy football of weeks 13 and 14. This 31-0 standard needs to be the baseline for effort moving forward. But in the end, the image that remains from this Sunday is Brandon Graham's smile. A player who has already given us everything he had, who had already said goodbye, returning to the battlefield to lead this team one more time. He is the heart and soul of this franchise. Seeing him celebrate those 2 sacks was like watching a movie. It reminds every player on that sideline what it means to be an Eagle. It is about grit, it is about resilience, and it is about stepping up when things look dark. As long as Brandon Graham is in uniform, the underdog spirit lives. Fan, what did you think of this historic performance? I have 2 questions for you today. First, does BG deserve a statue right now outside the stadium, or did he already deserve it before this game? And second, do you believe this 31-0 is the true turning point for a Super Bowl run? Or was it just a mirage because the Raiders are weak? I want to read your honest opinions in the comments. Let's debate. What a victory, my friend. What a victory. Leave a like for the legend Brandon Graham and subscribe to the channel because we will cover every step of this final playoff push. The season is alive and kicking. Fly, Eagles, fly.